Hey guys, Sasquatch Prospector here. So, we left San Francisco. Great city, man. Great city. So what are we doing today? We're gonna punch through Sierra Nevadas, the mountain range, which is the mountains that separate California from Nevada. As we're punching through the Sierras towards Virginia City, we're gonna talk all about the California Gold Rush and, the history of California and gold mining in California. And San Francisco, guys. San Francisco comes back into the picture again. Obviously, just talk about it. But it was because it was the transportation hub for everybody coming in from South America and other countries in the world, right? That's where it got its port culture, the Pacific Coast culture thing, right? San Francisco was a big player in that, a big part of how it started. So the California Gold Rush, guys, we've got Placerville. We're gonna stop in Placerville, check out Placerville, California, because it's a fun little town. It's a cool little place. Obviously, after placer mining, we're going to go to Coloma, California, which was the site of the discovery claim. James Sutter. He was a carpenter building a sawmill, and he looked down one day and saw a shining glimmer, picked it up, thought it was gold, confirmed it was, and California Gold Rush began, guys. We're now going to be going up on the 50, Eldorado Highway. Go to Placerville, Coloma, California goldfields, guys. We're pretty much right at the foothills of it now, the Eldorado Hills. Eldorado means gold, right, in Spanish? You can see the Sierra Nevada mountains, the legendary Sierra Nevadas, right? They're like the Rockies, guys. Basically, there's Interstate 80 that takes you in the north route, and then there's State Highway 50, the Eldorado Highway. We're taking the Eldorado Highway. It takes you up south over Lake Tahoe. If you go north, you miss it. But north is cool because that's where the Donner Party got frozen in, and they found them in the springtime. They got snowed in the Sierras. They were crossing the Sierras in wintertime about what we were going to do, but they were doing it in a wagon. And then the only way for them to survive was to, eat the people that died. All throughout here, all along down to Mariposa, almost even further in some parts. Gold claims, hard rock, placer gold claims. Usually how it works, right, is once the easy placer diggings, the poor man's diggings, are taken up, then it becomes expensive and complicated and requires resources and materials and knowledge, because then you have to hard rock mine. So you have to find an ore vein in the side of a mountain or side of a cliff. You have to blast it out, or chip it out, or you gotta build an underground mine, right? So that's not exactly something that the average guy can do. So there are some of those mines in the Sierras too, hard rock gold mines. We're focusing mainly on placer stuff this time around. Manifest Destiny and all that, right? America, and you see what's going on in the news now, right? America's always had that. But the California Gold Rush, what was really kind of, they thought it was like it ordained them as like the nation that was to take this land, because basically California, this part of California, used to be a part of Mexico. It was a part of Mexico's northern, isolated, tiny settlements of like cattle ranchers, Spanish colonialist cattle ranchers and stuff. And then during the war, the Mexican-American War, Mexico lost the war against America, and then they were forced to cede California, Nevada, huge chunk of Texas, all the way down, right? Mexico was a lot bigger. Mexico went all the way up to almost border of Oregon. All of California was considered part of Mexico, but then they lost the war and they had to give it up to the Americans, which is one thing. But the Americans hadn't had any, like, they won the war, but they weren't really sure what to do with it. And just before the Mexican government ceded the territory to the American government, they didn't realize, but gold had been discovered. They discovered gold a couple days before Mexico ceded the territory. So it was still Mexican territory when gold was discovered. But word doesn't travel fast in the 1800s because they don't have cell phones or anything, right? So it took a few months even for the word to get to like San Francisco, Sacramento and stuff, right? And then once people found out about it, then it was this big, huge thing. And then Mexico was like, right? Because they had this and then they lost it. But what it ended up doing, and you'll see in the monuments and stuff, the museum, is Americans are very proud of it. Was it confirmed to America that it was like God telling America that America was right to take this land from Mexico, and that now their reward was this huge gold rush. And so all of this gold that they had found in this new territory that they had just taken away from Mexico was used to help the country. So California was brought into the Union in a big way, partially because of the amount of gold and stuff. And you'll see when we go to Virginia City, Nevada actually was not supposed to be a state. You had to have a certain amount of people to become a state because of the Comstock load in Virginia City and the amount of money that and the value of the war. They said no, we'll let you in. So then Nevada became a state, and they're referred to as the battle-born state because they became part of the Union. They used a lot of that money, like a lot of the silver and the gold and stuff, that was used to help, fight the war. The California Gold Rush, guys, is very symbolic because a lot of Americans, especially back then, it's proof that God wanted them to have this land and that they were rewarded for their efforts, basically. So they're very, very proud of it, right? And rightly so, right? Same thing with us in Canada with the Yukon Gold Rush, because it had the same effect on Canada as a country. But the cool thing about California was this started it. This was the first rush that basically said to people, like, there's money to be made out in the middle of nowhere, and if you're willing to look for it, hardworking American thing, right? Like you get a job, you work hard, you put in hours, like it'll pay off. That's where that came from, because they all believed that they would go to the gold creeks, they put in their time, they'd work hard, and they'd be rewarded. Alrighty guys, downtown Placerville, otherwise known as, or formerly known as, Hangtown. In the foothills of the Sierras now. This would have been an old gold camp, guys, back in the day. Gold mines all around here, gold claims, right guys? Panning, rocking the California cradle, separate the finds, right? Rocker boxes. But really cool region, guys. Always wanted to come to the Sierras, it's like the Rockies that way. You always hear about them, but another thing to actually come and see them, right? And we're going to be punching right through them, going into Nevada and then Lake Tahoe there. 1849, guys, Coloma, California. This is where it started, and then it just spread out from there, all kinds of different places and stuff. Placerville Soda Works, 1897, 1859. Cool little town though, it's cute. Alrighty guys, so we're on the 49 on our way to Coloma, California, the start of the Sierra Nevada Gold Rush, otherwise known as the California Gold Rush. So all through here there would have been gold mines and gold claims, guys prospecting and mining. Now it's obviously, neighborhood. But this was all gold, guys. And Placerville used to be called Hangtown, because remember I was saying at some point in the last couple of days, California had really harsh punishments, like frontier justice kind of stuff. Placerville was a place where they used to like to hang people a lot for crimes, so much so that they called it Hangtown. Just to give you an idea, how rough it was back then. So Coloma, Auburn also has got gold. All up, guys. Coloma kind of sits right in the middle of the gold field, so it's like you have all the way from past Auburn north down Mariposa. Welcome to Coloma, site of the Sierra Nevada California Gold Rush. These are the foothills of the Sierras. See, got a little mountain over there. So we're gonna go take a walk and go look at some fun stuff and all kinds of cool things. The Coloma Road, here in the valley of the Coloma Indians. James W. Marshall discovered gold on January 24th, 1848. In the tail race of Sutter's sawmill. The old Coloma Road was used by Marshall to carry the news of the discovery to Captain John A. Sutter during the gold rush of the Californias. It became the route of California's first stage line, established by James E. Birch. Welcome to Marshall Gold Discovery State Historic Park. This is where it all started, guys. This is like Discovery Claim in Dawson. In 1848, James Marshall caught sight of gleaming small gold nuggets in the tail race of the sawmill. With a good piece in his hand, he could not have imagined that people would come from all over the world. Yep, lots of people came. Let's go look at the mill, guys. This would have been the site where it happened, right there. It's the mill. Checking the tail race. We found gold. The tail race is where the water exits out of. Changing California. If you had stood in the spot in 1769, 1823, and 1848, then you would have been in 3 different countries. Each time California switched, life changed for its people. The Spanish province. California was a Spanish province in 1769. For the colonizers, California was a rich region with boundless tracts of land that could be turned into profitable ranches. For Native Americans, California became a dangerous place, as many were enslaved through the Spanish mission system. Harsh living conditions and exposure to European diseases killed thousands. The Mexican territory. California was a Mexican territory in 1823. For elite families, this was a golden era, as the government redistributed land from the abolished mission system. Rancheros ran their cattle and sheep ranches and ruled Mexican society. Even though there were no more missions, life for the Native Americans did not return to normal, as many were forced to work on ranches. American domain. Many Americans saw California as a land of golden opportunity and began moving west in the 1830s and 40s. They believed they had a duty to spread democracy across the continent, and this idea was called Manifest Destiny. But growing tension over these settlers led to the Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. Unfortunately, things did not turn the way Sutter and Marshall planned. Although Marshall found gold, he and Sutter did not make money from the gold rush. The workers abandoned the mill site, and Sutter's fort in search of easier fortunes. With no workers operating the sawmill, it failed and soon was overrun with gold seekers. Eventually, Sutter's fort closed. Sutter and Marshall were back to where they started. Because he was a carpenter, guys. He wasn't a gold prospector. He was a carpenter. And he was just maintenancing the tail race, or, checking the tail race, doing an inspection. The tail race is where all the water comes out of the back. And he found gold, and that was it, right? Nobody else cared about sawmill anymore. Like, who cares, right? But this is the mill, guys. This is the Sutters Mill. It's where it all started. It was a sawmill operation. They were out here sawing logs. In January 1848, the sawmill crew discovered that the tail race, the ditch that drained water away from the water wheel and channeled it back to the river, was too shallow. To deepen the tail race, the workers blasted the bedrock and dug out the loosened debris. Marshall used river power to help excavate the loosened material by letting the river run freely at night and checking the results in the morning. On January 24th, 1848, Marshall checked the channel like every other day. But this morning, he found gold lodged in the cracks of the bedrock. Marshall's drawing of the completed sawmill. James Marshall thought he had found gold, but could it be fool's gold? Gold is soft, but fool's gold breaks apart. So Marshall hit the nuggets with a rock. The nuggets bent and did not break. The nuggets were not fool's gold, but Marshall still needed to rule out other metals like copper. Jenny Wimmer tried her own test. She soaked the nuggets overnight in lye, knowing the caustic solution would remove the luster from copper. In the morning, the nuggets were still shiny and yellow. It was gold. In the midst of deepening the sawmill's tail race, the recreated channel, Marshall spotted gold nuggets in the bedrock. Marshall and Coloma would never be the same. Yeah, keeping it a secret. Good luck. Did you know that Sutter was worried about gold discovery? He feared gold fever would lure away his workers. Sutter asked the crew to keep gold discovery secret until the mill construction was finished. 13 members of the crew agreed to keep the secret, but in a matter of weeks, the word was out. The guys never could shut up about it. Everybody got so excited about it, and they'd spill their beans on it. This is all about trees and river access, because you obviously want an abundance of lumber. Alrighty, guys, so placer mining at Coloma. A sluice box or long tom was a man-made channel placed next to or in the stream of water with riffles to catch gold particles. Some had a gate at the top to regulate the flow of water and in multiple areas to catch gold. Because they processed a great deal of placer material, sluices vastly sped up the gold separation process. Yeah, painting is slow, guys. Hard work. Using a gold pan all day, you're on your knees, crouched down, wrist gets tired. Obviously, it could be a lot worse, but it's definitely not easy work. When quartz decomposes, small gold particles are freed. They wash downstream and collect as placer gold in sand and gravel bars along Sierra rivers. Placer mining is simple but exhausting task of washing tons of sand, gravel, and dirt to recover ounces of gold. Miners here found gold mainly in the American River gravelly bed or in gravel traces along its banks. Depending on the size of their operation, they washed dirt in their pans, cradles, and long toms or sluice boxes. The heavy placer gold settles to the bottom of the pan or catches in the riffles of a sluice. A cradle or rocker functioned as a large gold pan to shake out the shovels full of placer rocks at a time. A screen separated the large rocks, bottom riffles trap the gold. That's the California cradle, guys. It's the rocker box. And then people from all nations came to mine the American River, guys. Look at that. Absolute craziness. And then the gold pan was the easiest method. The miner's cabin, very important. So you're out in the bush on your claim prospecting, right? You need somewhere to live. Keep in mind, guys, the average skill for people in the 1800s was being able to build a cabin. Whereas if you ask the average person now to go out into the bush and build a cabin out of wood, hand cut, I don't think they'd be able to do it. I certainly wouldn't, but the average person in the 1800s could do this, which gives you an idea of how hard these guys worked. The Chile mine. Soon after gold was discovered in California, many experienced gold miners came to California from Chile in 1848 and 49. That's what I was talking about, San Francisco. It's Chile, right up to San Francisco and then into through Sacramento and then right into here. They introduced the Chilean wheel, which was crushed ore beneath round stones. That's really cool, actually. I've never seen that. This mill was identical in design to mills used in Palestine during biblical times for crushing olives, and was familiar to European gold miners as early as the 16th century. Chilean wheels were used in Chile, Peru, Mexico. This was part of the Mexican patio process for extracting silver and gold. That's really good. Like, that's super cool. So it's just a wheel that grinds stuff up. Those are the wheels there. Arastier. Mexicans introduced the mule or horse-powered Arastier to California in 1849. Gold-bearing ore was ground between heavy stones upon a surface of well-fitted rocks. Miners then panned the pulverized ore to collect the gold. They also used mercury in the bottom of a pan to amalgamate the gold. The Arastier was effective but slow for the impatient Americans. So similar to the Chilean wheel. Cool though, really cool. Ooh, water monitors, guys. If you haven't seen my likely Barkerville Caribou Gold Rush videos, make sure you check those out. But this is where we go, guys. Hydraulic mining. Water monitor. The giants, they used to call them too. They called them giants. You see the nozzle there? The water just rushing out of it. But this is what they would have used to blast the banks away with high pressure water, guys. I covered all that in the Caribou process of it, but you can see it's not much different. They had the handle in the Caribou. They've got the handle here. You can see all the old pipe sections. Lots of tailing, tons of tailings everywhere. Pipe sections, tailings. The elbow, the knuckle connection. This is a knuckle connection. You see there's still sediment in it. Elbows. And gradually reducing the pressure, guys. If you notice, you have a huge volume of water coming through in this big pipe, and it reduces gradually and gradually, and keeps reducing until you're getting out to like at the end where it's like this. Michigan Bar on the Consumes River near Rancho Marita. The hill is much of the same today without the water. That's what it would have looked like. As miners moved from Sierra streams to gulches and hills, they found rich gold deposits in ancient riverbeds, some far from water. By 1853, they had begun working these gravels with water delivered through hoses and nozzles. Ultimately, this major California mining development created a vast system of flumes to satisfy its need for water. Brought from higher elevations and riveted pipes, the water was directed through iron nozzles called monitors. The powerful spray leveled hills and washed gold deposits into a series of sluices where gold could be extracted. Hydraulicking also swept large amounts of silt into the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers, causing frequent flooding. Valley farmers organized, and in 1884, a court decision made hydraulic mining operations liable for downstream damage. Required to contain mining runoff, most companies found further hydraulicking unprofitable, and the industry virtually came to an end. So you can see hydraulicking, right? Likely, horsefly, all the same thing up in BC. So they stopped doing it in 1884 in California, but J.B. Hobson came up from California to the gold rush in the Caribou and used all his mining knowledge from hydraulicking down here to go and create the bullion pit and mine in the Caribou, right? Highly successful guy, J.B. Hobson, man. He's a real character, that guy. But J.B. Hobson, guys, this was J.B. Hobson's baby. He was working on all this. He was a mining engineer. He's very, very important in the development of hydraulic mining. So even though it fell by the wayside in California, he just came up to BC, and they started doing it in BC because they were all for it in BC. And to see if they got hard rock. Well, they got stamp mill here for the hard rock ore. It's nice. Yeah, this is a stamp mill. We've seen these before, Barkerville in Canada there. We've got the cam. It's counterweighted arms, or the lifters, basically. And then they're just ordered, synchronized in such a way that one lifts up as one pushes down, and one lifts up as one pushes down. And then just use it to crush ore. But it's a nice looking cam. It's a pretty simple design for the cam, just 2 claws. California stamp mill. Soon after miners discovered gold in underground quartz veins, mills were brought into the process the ore. Dating back to at least the 1500s, mills used heavy iron powders called stamps to crush the rock. Each mill had a series of stamps equipped with iron shoes. Partially broken quartz was fed into bins behind the stamps, and then into mortars holding dies on which shoes fell. Each stamp rose and dropped separately. This example is an early 2-stamp mill. California quartz miners improved stamp mills by changing from soft iron to cast iron shoes, dies, and mortars. They also introduced stamps that rotated on their vertical axis with each rise and fall. The result was the California stamp, a machine so efficient that it was used in gold mining throughout the world. Gold-bearing quartz was brought from the mine in ore cars, dumped down a chute, or shoveled into a mortar where the rocks fed under the stamper shoes. Ore was crushed to a particle size small enough to go through a 40 mesh screen, 1600 holes per square inch, at which point it flowed through the screen across the amalgamation table where mercury was added. Any particle of gold that touched the mercury created an amalgam, mercury and other metals combined. The amalgam was then boiled to free the mercury, a boiling point of 670 degrees Fahrenheit from the gold, which has a melting point of 2000 degrees Fahrenheit. Stamp mills often ran around the clock, making tremendous amount of noise. In some mining areas, the sound of the stamp mills could be heard and the rumble felt for miles away. Many workers lost their hearing or were exposed to poisonous mercury while tending the California stamps. The stamps were arranged in mortar boxes, which generally contained 5 stamps. Look at those gears, eh? Ooh, look at that. Nice. Stamp mill, 2-stamp mill, California stamp mill. And we've seen the ore cart, guys, right? Everybody knows. Mucking machine, ore cart. So we're just in the town area. Almost overnight, migrants from around the world turned Coloma into a town of tent dwellings, hotels, and stores. Gold seekers wandered the muddy streets, searching for limited supplies of gold pans and pickaxes. Seasoned miners with gold dust to spare sought entertainment at saloons and gambling tables. Rich soil proved more valuable than gold for Coloma. In a decade, the surface gold was mined out and the miners moved to richer strikes elsewhere. Then how did Coloma survive? Enterprising residents turned to farming orchards, vineyards, and transforming Coloma into an agricultural hub. Coloma soon became a jumping off point for arriving gold seekers whose claims ranged beyond the town and remote areas. These miners returned to Coloma to pick up supplies and to hear news of the outside world. By September 1849, Coloma had established a post office, offering miners slow and infrequent mail service with families left behind. Writing to his father, Jared Brown noted, "This small place has caused all the excitement through the world for gold. Thousands of all nations are here." It's huge, guys. It's huge. It was the big one. It started it all. It started everything. Would you work for pennies a day when the gold fields offered hopes of a better life? Most workers near Coloma chose mining, leaving the sawmill understaffed. John Sutter had tried to keep the gold discovery quiet for this reason. Between 1848, the mill ran only sporadically. It didn't last very long, guys. It didn't do very well. Just because everybody had other priorities. The river level was low in 1947. Rushing against the clock, archaeologists uncovered the mill's foundations. Some timbers in the tail race location where James Marshall accidentally discovered gold. The moment of discovery. This serene location is where the gold rush started. James Marshall stood right here in 1848 when he pulled the small gold nuggets from the tail race. His heart pounding with excitement. This spot was and is like no other. This is it, guys, right here. Only a handful of people knew about Marshall's gold discovery on January 24th, 1848. However, the news was too big to keep a secret. Yeah, why do guys even try? I get it, but why did they even try? Mill worker Henry Bigler recorded the moment of discovery in his diary. The first discovery came from Bigler and other working journals. Sensational news, guys. It was. If you found gold, would you be able to keep it quiet? The sawmill workers whispered about the discovery until reports reached Sutter's Fort in San Francisco. From there, stories of gold spread like wildfire. Passenger ships carried the news to distant ports in Mexico, Chile, Hawaii, Australia, China, and Europe. Newspapers shouted the discovery from their headlines, and soon everyone had gold fever. Exaggerated reports, sensational headlines, and tales too good to be true circulated about Marshall's gold discovery. Many Americans did not know if the reports were fact or fiction. President James Polk finally publicly confirmed the gold discovery in August 1848, and even more fortune seekers were affected by the gold. Our metal has been tried and proves to be gold. We have picked up more than $100 worth last week. Unstoppable news. Caught up in the frenzied news about the gold discovery, thousands of gold seekers from all corners of the world flooded Coloma. California's gold fields offered boundless opportunity and hope of a brighter future. With dreams of a better life, many people left their homes bound for Coloma. San Francisco residents rushed out of the city to find their fortunes. Oregon farmers soon joined the fray. Imagine traveling hundreds of thousands of miles without highways, railroads, or airports. Gold seekers were desperate to reach California as quickly as possible to stake their claims. Some braved overland trails to California, driving wagons, ox carts, or even walking. Immigrants from Hawaii, Australia, Mexico, Peru, Chile, and Europe set sail for California, sustained through grueling ocean voyages by the dream of gold. Starve at home or risk everything in California. This was the choice facing many men in China. In 1852, more than 20,000 Chinese took a gamble and fled famine and unrest at home. By the end of the 1850s, Chinese immigrants made up 20% of mining communities. These miners toiled away in Gumsan, the Golden Mountain, searching for gold flakes to support their families. Right along here, guys, the American River. This is where it was discovered, in the tail race of the mill. And then, as we've just been talking about, right, it blew up. And you can see the beautiful foothills of the Sierras. The American River, though. Do you remember Discovery Claim in Dawson? It has the same vibe. This rock monument marks the site of John A. Sutter's sawmill, in the tail race of which James W. Marshall discovered gold. January 24th, 1848, starting the great rush of Argonauts to California. The Society of California Pioneers definitely located and marked the site in 1924. Additional timbers and relics, including original tail race, were unearthed in 1947. So this is it, guys. This is the site of the mill. This is where that mill over there was, right here. And he went to go check the tail race in the morning, right after they had been excavating the tail race. And he found gold, and then nobody else cared about being a lumberjack or sawmills anymore, and it was wood. And the sawmill business owner lost his business, right? He ended up losing his business because everybody left and nobody wanted to work anymore, and they all went for gold. But this is the location, guys, and this is the American River. That's what it's called, the American River. And then all through this valley, all the way down far north past Nevada City territory, and then all the way down south down to like Mariposa near Yosemite. All through these valleys is all gold, guys. It's like thousands of claims. And the California Gold Rush, guys, this was the first rush. This was what brought everybody to North America. And then the Fraser Gold Rush in Canada, in British Columbia on the Fraser River, was discovered. And guess what? All the guys that were in California, they went up to the Fraser River. And so the Fraser River, even though it was in Canada, in British Columbia, it had mostly Americans. It was mostly Americans that were coming for the gold because they'd all gone to California. They were chasing the dream. This is like, the American dream started with gold mining, guys, because it was, you could come to the country and you could work hard. And if you worked hard all day and, you know, you put your time in, you could potentially make it rich and be highly, highly successful. Like a lot of the founding fortunes of the world, of world people, were from this time. Like Donald Trump's grandfather owned brothels in the Yukon. That's how that family made their money. The gold rush plays an intimate part of a lot of different cultures, right? A lot of different people's lives. We saw a little bit about hydraulicking and stuff. There's an indoor part of the museum, which I want to go check out and see a little bit more about. Just on the inside now, guys. Edward Sucrop found this nugget in the tail race of Sutter's Mill on July 7th, 1848. In 1993, miners found a 1-ounce nugget near Coloma. California's Motherlode. Rich gold veins run through the foothills and mountains of the Sierra Nevada range. This is called Motherlode, a zone stretching 1.5 to 6 kilometers wide and 190 kilometers long. From 1848 to 1967, over 106 million ounces of gold were mined, more than any other state. Some 200 million years ago, a solution of melted silica and gold forced its way up through the cracks and fissures in the rocks here. As the solution cooled, the silica crystallized into quartz filled with gold particles embedded in Mariposa slate that today makes up the gold deposits of the Sierra Nevada mountain. Even the richest hard rock deposits may hold less than an ounce of gold per ton of rock. You can see, guys, Placerville, that's where we were. Coloma, that's where we went. And then this whole region here, it's all the Motherlode country of the Sierras. In Sacramento and San Francisco. So you would have gone from San Francisco all the way to Sacramento, Placerville, Coloma. And there's gold all the way down here, guys. Nevada City up here. Mariposa slate with quartz. This rock that made California famous, Mariposa Slate, has veins of gold running through it that contain gold. Serpentine, iron pyrite, quartz with gold flakes. That's iron pyrite in marl. Limestone, mica. Objects in this case show what life was like for miners during the gold rush. Although miners came from many different ways of life, they all labored for days on end and with the same goal in mind. After grueling work in all kinds of weather, miners would return to their tents or cabins and cook simple meals of beans, game meat, and other basic grub over an open fire. Currency was rare in California. Instead, miners carried gold dust in small leather bags called pokes. The atmosphere of the camps was bursting with energy. Leisure time was no exception. On Sundays, miners gambled and played other games of chance. You can see all the little articles, right? Picks, shovels, pans, rocker box. The rocker or cradle consists of a high-sided opens onto a sluice. The bottom of the box is lined with slats. A sieve on the top of the box screens out large pieces of rock, allowing only smaller pieces to fall through. Miners pour water in the top and rock the cradle gently. The dirt flows through the baffle, which separates out the fine gold and helps evenly distribute the gravel across the lower sluice. As the cradle is rocked and water pours through, small pieces of heavy gold get trapped in a canvas or miner's carpet at the bottom of the sluice. California cradle, guys. Miners work a claim on Spanish Flat, just a few miles from Coloma, in 1852. They were using a long tom, which allows several miners to work together in a larger mining operation. The life of a 49er. Many miners arrived in California, having spent their life savings to travel here. They discovered that mining was hard and monotonous, filled with long days and lonely nights. Eating a poor diet, lacking in fresh fruit and vegetables, miners got sick from scurvy as well as other diseases like malaria and fever. They lived in canvas tents or pooled their resources with friends to build log cabins. They cooked over open fires. Miners used mercury, some 26 million pounds, to separate gold from ore. Mercury was added to sluice boxes to bind the gold. They would then burn off the mercury, leaving behind just gold. Today, scientists estimate that 13 million pounds of mercury from the gold rush remain in the water and ground. Even 1 gram of mercury in a small lake is enough to cause health problems in humans. When gold rush began, most people knew just 3 locations in California: San Francisco, Sutters, Fort, and Coloma. People flocked to this place where gold had been discovered. Miners told their families to send letters care of Coloma. Where miners went, businesses, merchants, doctors, blacksmiths, and cooks followed. The town grew rapidly. Along the river, the landscape was stripped. The hills that were once covered with old-growth trees were bare by 1853. As miners moved on, Coloma residents terraced the hills to plant orchards and vineyards. Today, oak and pine forests have reclaimed some of the landscape. Alrighty, guys. Coming to the end here at Coloma California Gold Rush, just in the main center of town here. Coloma. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. California Gold Rush. It's a pretty special one, this one. It's kind of the big one that started it all. And then all the other rushes followed, right? I was saying Fraser River Rush and Dawson City, Yukon, and Bondi. Yeah, so if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified. And Sasquatch Prospector out.